Alawi's probably going to be taken off the board this entire series from here on out. The Jace pick as well, not too surprising because like we were saying, Tempo Storm in that series not only showed that, they're going to play Alawi, but most importantly, they showed that they are willing to take double AD to deny the potential lane for a Galio to really work. So, one of the big things that allows that to happen is the Jace. You can take it, put it top and mid, and kind of react to whatever Tempo Storm wants to do. So this time around, GCU says, fine, that Jace pick is a problem as well, not just the Alawi. We're going to get rid of both of them right now.
Well, they're also banned away one of the playmaking supports. This is the Thresh, which we saw the priority on in Game 1 for the side of Tempo Storm. They picked up the Blitzcrank in Game number 2 when that was left available. However, the Caitlyn being banned away here by Tempo Storm, they know that they haven't shown Elise priority on the side of GCU, and instead they pick up the Kalista and steal that one away from Freeze.
And I think this is smart because even though it didn't work out in Game 1 due to the over-aggression by Sheep, they were still winning that lane with the Kalista pick. Game 2, winning the lane again. And here they don't want to risk losing ball lane again, so they grab the Kalista. Now what's interesting is this is the first time that Cho'Gath has fallen through the pick ban phase of the first round, so there's a chance that someone's going to be able to grab it here and kind of showcase the strength of that champion, hopefully.
Well, it's also a flex pick too. If anybody's going to be flexing that, it's going to be Quas.
Yeah, of course.
It's going to take that one for the side of Tempo Storm. Now, it could still potentially be a jungle Cho'Gath, but the Elise is still left available, and as I mentioned before, Santorin hasn't been showing a tendency to pick that one away when it's left available, instead favoring the Maokai, but it looks like it's going to be a Gragas as well, so we could solidify Cho'Gath at least in one of the solo lanes and Gragas in the jungle.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised to see them take the Gragas there, given the fact that, like you said, Elise is still up. Pretty good matchup for her into the Gragas. Now, this could be, of course, some ridiculous double flex situation that Tempo Storm is setting up for themselves because we know that Cho'Gath can go mid as well. That allows maybe Gragas to go topside. You grab another jungler. Who knows? Now, that's a little surprising here in the fact that they could have just taken the Elise and potentially grabbed the Gragas. I don't know. We'll have to see what ends up happening. GCU going to grab the Braum, and looks like they're hovering the Gnar pick. We already saw out of Licorice yesterday that, Cho'Gath can do good against range matchups. You go that Doran shield early on to survive some of the harass. You use your passive to heal back up. It can be a little bit harder to force them out of laning phase than you might initially think.
Yeah, so the Gnar pickup, it was banned away in game number 2, which is why they wound up going for the Kennen. So now this is something that Solo may feel a little more comfortable on. It's a bit more of a comfort pick champion for him, but he did say that Licorice showed us how the Cho'Gath can get an advantage against it. And Selfie looks like he might be going for the Zed, showcasing why it was banned away from him in game number 1.
Yeah, very surprising to see that. Now, one of the advantages of banning assassins on the blue side, or I shouldn't say advantages, but one of the reasons you see it is because with the way the new 10-ban system works, that the red side has an advantage of being able to do the first 2 bans in the second round. So you can take an assassin that has some bad matchups, grab that in the last part of the first round, the pick phase, and then use your next 2 bans to secure it some decent matchups, get rid of its worst counters. That could be what we see this time around. GCU feeling like they couldn't afford the ban on it, and Tempo Storm hopefully trying to punish right away.
Yeah, well, they banned the Corki away in ban phase number 2 right here. They've already banned the Orianna, which is normally a decent matchup with the the command protect to keep her alive through that matchup. But now it's balls in the court for Goldcoin United. What are they going to play against the Zed? They do want to ban away the Syndra as well. So some very high damage, high priority mid laners being banned away from the side of Fly.
Yeah, Fly, as much as we say he has a broad array of champions he can play, you're starting to get into the territory now where there's 3, potentially 4 mid lane bans if you're counting that Jace one as well. That's a champion that some people think had some good matches for Zed, or maybe Zed was favored at different points. So we'll have to see what they decide to go with. There are still some really safe options. Karma is something that you tend to see a fair amount.
Aurelion Sol.
Aurelion Sol.
That's a Fly pick.
Yeah, you can play Aurelion Sol. He is known for a lot of those roaming style champions, but some of them do struggle a little bit in the assassin matchup. They push in early on. It makes the assassin's life very annoying, but then once they hit 6, they might have the tools to kill them. Aurelion Sol does have decent disengage with the ultimate and things like that, as well as the fact that you have a stun at point blank range, and Zed can be a little bit telegraphed where he comes out. Because you always appear behind them. So there are some situations where I can see that working out, but once again, it comes down to matchup knowledge. Has he played Aurelion Sol versus Zed? He did play it a lot in solo queue and played it back in Korea, so there's a very decent chance. Looks like it's going to be the Vladimir, though, which makes a little bit more sense in my book. It's a champion that does very well versus assassins, can use the Fool to dodge out on all those kind of all-in threats, and you can actually completely dodge the ultimate if you channel it at the right time. So a very nice pickup into the Zed.
A little less roamy, but a little more effective, especially as you get to the later stages of the game. Drop the Hemo Plague in a fight, and you're able to keep yourself alive, as well as dishing out a decent amount of damage upon your opponents. We also saw the Tristana and Jhin being banned away from GCU during the second ban phase, but that was what frees to the Xayah pickup. And while he's known as as a Kalista and a Draven player, as his go-to kind of champions, his not one trick, but his priority champions. He's been playing a lot of Xayah throughout solo queue, and he's busted out a couple of times in the Challenger Series already.
A little different than what you were expecting, though, when you think about Freeze and why he's subbed in, trying to be more lane dominant, things like the Kalista, like the Caitlyn. I really do like the double 80 carry band thrown at him, and even if he is practiced on Xayah, it is still stylistically a very different champion, even if he can execute on it well. So you're kind of limiting one of the things that was working very well for Tempo Storm in the first 2 games here.
Yeah, well, they do wind up going with the Maokai as the last pickup, and now
the Vygar.
A Vygar support?
Looks like it. So this is a champion that we haven't seen for quite a while. I think the last time that I can remember seeing the Vygar was all the way back when Cloud9 was using it at Worlds. I'm trying to think if there's another time that we saw it after that. Someone can maybe get in my ear and tell me if there's another Vygar that I missed. But it's a champion that just its E ability, the Event Horizon, the amount of huge AoE zone control stun that thing puts out is often considered enough to really make it a valuable pick, just because a lot of people consider that ability so strong it may as well be an ultimate for the amount of stun duration that it gives. Now, the curious thing is its matchup versus Kalista and Braum. So you can potentially trap the Kalista in an area. If you dash through it, you still eat the stun. So, while Kalista's hopping around, maybe she does hop into the stun, but it is a little bit of a concern because it is a very mobile champion. And if you land a Braum Q on it, you might be able to hop in and just kind of all in that Vygar pick multiple times. So I'm very curious to see how that works out. Very surprised by that pick.
Yeah, also the fact of the matter is that's so squishy in the bottom lane. Like, Vygar himself has a very small amount of HP at the beginning of the game. He's not really going to be building anything besides a Sightstone to really buffer that one up. One of the things you do have, though, is you have the double AD threat because you have a Xayah and you have a Zed. You have a Cho'Gath on the top lane who will be dealing some magic damage, some true damage because of his ultimate, which is a big part of his kit and big part of his damage. But you supplement that by, we're talking about in game 2. Maybe you go for a Zyra and wind up having some AP damage on the bottom side. Now you have a Vygar who could get free pot shots off on the Braum in the melee matchup as long as he stays alive.
And I mean, if you look at the comp of Tempo Storm, they do have a lot of kind of like you're caught out for a little bit and you're instantly dead. You have the Zed who has a ton of burst damage when he drops his full combo on somebody. Cho'Gath has a ton of burst damage through his ultimate. You can kind of get a really nasty chain CC combo in siege situations where you drop the Event Horizon. If you're able to hit somebody with that, the Rupture is very easy to land as a result. Then you throw a Silence in there. You could basically lock them up for the entire 5 seconds it takes to kill them while you burst them down with some of that extra damage. So it's a comp where I can see how it works. My concern, of course, is the laning phase with this Vygar pick.
Yeah, it'll definitely be an interesting one to see on the bottom side. There's already been a lot of priority from both of these teams down there. Is what tends to happen when Tempo Storm is running Freeze. This time around, though, it's a bit of a different look on the matchup. Both of these bot lane ADCs have a bit of an execute on their E ability, but it's a different matchup for the supports. And more importantly, we got a Zed and a Vladimir in the mid lane, which is bringing me back to like Season 3 is I think the last time we really saw this matchup go head-to-head.
A lot of throwback champions this time around, obviously. We are going to probably keep a close eye on the bot lane here. We've seen the Maokai matchup a couple times now, 3rd game in a row for Santorin. It's not that cool anymore.
No longer.
The new hotness is the Vygar support. And especially because, we're talking about the chain CC with the Cho'Gath potentially in the bot lane itself. This can potentially set up some nice roots for Xayah as well. Maybe that guarantees, the dark matter falling down on them. But it is a little scary just because if you don't land the Event Horizon, it suddenly becomes a very useless pick.
Yeah, all of a sudden you have a lot of burst damage, but you don't really have a lot of damage if you're building support. But we do see him going for a Spell Thief's Edge early on. We'll see how fast he's able to complete that quest to give him a little bit of bonus movement speed whenever he hits somebody. But it looks like both these teams deciding to start off relatively safe with a bit of a line of scrimmage lineup. A couple of pings on the bottom side. It looks like Selfie might have been scouted out, but do not wind up landing the Braum Q. Instead, Selfie gonna just walk away.
Just a little wide to the left there by Mad Life. I'm pretty sure it would have been in range if he had been a little bit more on target, but you don't know exactly where they're standing in the brush. Missed the slow. Would have been hard to convert into anything anyways, and gonna get a standard start here. Maokai starting up in the top side, like we tend to see a little bit more with the Maokai, wanting to be able to spam that mana early on. Gragas going to be starting up on the top side. Looks like Quas is going to be helping him out with Cho'Gath. Going for a red start potentially here instead of a Raptor start. Maybe because Quas starts E and wants to, throw in that extra damage right away. Really going to chunk this one down quickly.
Yeah, so they get the red buff start for the side of Tempo Storm. There's a ward been placed down on the bottom side by GCU by forcing Selfie back. So Tempo Storm maybe just starting on the opposite side of the map, not to give them too much information, although by not being there, that means that they know where he's going to be. So
more than likely he starts on the top side anyways. Probably just they felt like they had a ward to spare. They go and throw it in right away.
Yep.
And they're going to have the pressure in this bot lane, I assume, for a long phase early on. They just need to be concerned about the gank setup that can potentially come in with this Vygar pick.
Yeah. The Event Horizon lands. You could root somebody up with the Xayah. We mentioned the power of that coming in early on. And Vygar has a deceiving amount of damage.
Of course.
So you also have the ability for Wiggly to kind of come in. And there's a lot of chain CC, specifically from this bottom side of the map. We'll see if Wiggly makes a focus down there. So he did want to going red to Raptors. Is now wrapping around for the blue buff. Maybe he'll hit level 3 off of this, and maybe it additionally just controlling the Scuttle Crab. And if this Kalista and Braum are playing quite aggressively, might have an open window to gank them. But Mad Life is going to be cutting that one off early on by going directly into the river, looking to be placing another ward down as soon as possible.
Spots out the Gragas, and another benefit of the clear that's coming in for the Maokai. Last pro play was, it is the Worlds last time we saw it won, but we did see it in the summer of 2016 by the LPL. Basically a full year now since Vygar's been in pro play. I wonder if it was support too last time we saw it in the LPL, because when Cloud9 was busting it out, it was more the mid lane Vygar.
I mean, Vegard X was playing Veigar.
That's neat.
That was Jensen/Incarnation's original name. It was the Veigar god. Now this time around, it's going to be in the hands of Sheep. And we'll see if he's able to utilize this one for potential gank setup or potential counter gank setup here. As Santorum once again snuck down into this brush. It's something that GCU's done multiple times. Both junglers are around this side area. Event Horizon winds up going down, but Santorum's able to wind up getting the lockdown on the Sheep, but in comes Wiggly from the backside, so Santorum's cut off the rest of his team. Flash Body Slam is going to land on Santorum. The Ignite's ticking down, but the tree's going to fall. First blood goes over to Veigar.
There we see the snowball coming in. He's got the double buffs. Really nice idea out of GCU, honestly, where they, once again, Santorum clears down to the bot side, sneaks into the bot lane brush, but the problem is his bot lane ate the double stun that came out of the Vygar pick, and so they wanted to chain CC the Vygar down right away, but he had no follow-up. That puts him slightly out of position as Gragas was wrapping around the same time. That really zones out the bot lane and kind of leaves Santorum out to dry. We'll take another look at it. You ideally want everyone to kind of all in on Sheep at the same time, but this double stun means that there's nothing else coming in to help them out. Now Wiggly is putting enough threat down onto Ricard that they have to look at him. Wiggly changes his targets back onto Santorum. Looks like he's going to be able to get away, but there you see the Q come in from Freeze. That Xayah pick, we were talking about if he was going to perform on it. A good start so far.
And they've been able to set things up on the bottom side of the map, and Tempo Storm are able to get the first action on that side of the map. You know, the exhaust went down onto Wiggly. Crowd control works just as well through the exhaust with the Flash Body Slam to lock down Santorum. And so now it's going to be advantages for Tempo Storm on the bottom side of the map. When we saw them getting even or slightly ahead in game number 2, it wound up coming out into a victory for them. So Tempo Storm, we'll see if they continue to keep up the pressure on the bottom side. An objective focused Drake of the Mountain Drake is the first one available. More importantly, there's a blue buff on this Veigar, so I'm sorry, Vygar, who is going to be able to just spam his spells onto his heart's content.
Vygar, Tom, I'm not going to correct you.
I'm going to keep switching it up then just to keep you on your toes and mainly annoy everybody watching the stream.
Go for it. Won't bother me one bit. So one thing that we didn't talk about much is that the mana costs on Vygar are relatively high, and that's something that the blue buff is going to be able to offset pretty nicely. You can throw out that Event Horizon a little bit more often now, go for more harass than you might normally be able to do. And I won't say I completely know this 2v2 matchup, Tom, and know when the pressure points are, but it is something that in theory I would think the Kalista should have an advantage on, but maybe it was swayed early on with that kill.
Well, the Kalista has been known to be kind of the bully matchup when she's paired up with something like a playmaking support like the Thresh. Specifically, that 2v2 scenario usually goes in favor of the Kalista matchup. And then she has the Braum to kind of keep herself safe. Of course, later on it'll be very effective, but looks like the focus now going to be shifted over to this mid lane matchup where Selfie and Fly have been kind of going toe-to-toe for quite some time. Wiggly made his presence known and burned the Ghost away from Fly, but nothing all too much happened. Despite it being a Zed matchup, a lot of the action's happening around the Zed, not because of the Zed yet.
And Zed is one of those champions that does want his first item purchase in combination with his level 6 before he starts forcing too much stuff. So Selfie is farmed up evenly, hits that 6. Here we're talking about going for the all-in on Fly.
Yeah, the Ignite is down, as is the Hemo Plague, and actually going to pop forward. Selfie drops down fairly low, but he will not wind up going down. Fly's going to evade a lot of the damage because of the Sanguine Pool. but the rest of the teams do show up. Tempo Storm with 2 in the mid lane, and Mad Life coming to protect his mid lane.
There you see the fact that Selfie never really could use his ultimate on that all-in attempt just because Fly would have the Sanguine pool to get out of it at any point. So even though he does drop the Ignite on him and get him kind of low, there's no additional burst damage coming in over the top. Fly takes the pool out, does get the ultimate advantage, but he does lose both summoners for it. Fly keeping his flash up.
So early aggression from Tempo Storm going slightly in their favor. Selfie is going to want it coming back to lane with the serrated Dirk, whereas a early Seeker's Arm Guard picked up for the side of Vladimir. He needs that extra armor to survive against this lethality-based matchup.
And this is a matchup that Fly will get the better of should it go late game. If the Zed is not able to find pickoffs and kind of snowball a little bit, without that teleport, it is a little bit harder to split push in side lanes without ceding objectives. So if Fly can go even, he will have a larger team fight presence, generally speaking.
We'll have to see if he's able to actually survive for that long, as Tempo Storm do have small advantages in the beginning of this game, getting them about a 600 gold lead, mainly because of the pressure they've had on the bottom side of the map. They have transitioned that so far into just a single control ward in the bottom side river, as though we see Selfie moving up here. There's a control ward on the top side as well, and this may be opening some opportunities for the Zed to roam.
Did ping up there, maybe wanting to collapse onto solo. Quas has done a decent job farming out, is about 10 CS behind at this point, assuming he grabs a couple of these. But you see that sustain coming, getting around 40 on that kill. It does make it a little bit annoying to try and harass him out. Now, the nice thing about Gnar is while he can be a bully in lane, which is very nice against tanks, he also functions as a tank later in the game. So Cho'Gath, as we saw yesterday on full display, is a bit of a beast in the late game. Gnar is somebody that if you find the right opening can get a really nice chain CC combination. And once again, GCU has an extremely beefy front line. Maokai, Braum, and Gnar, as well as this Vladimir pick, are going to have a lot of ways to dive onto the relatively immobile backline of Tempo Storm. Xayah can dodge out on some skills, but that's really her one move to get out of there. Vigar not very mobile. So this could be one of those games where if GCU gets ahead, they kind of steamroll over with the sheer amount of health that their comp will have.
Just the fact that they have a better late game team fight than what Tempo Storm is really setting up for. So Tempo Storm has the ability to be annoying with a Zed split push, but you mentioned the Vladimir going even will be able to contend with that in the later stages of the game. Even has the Ghost to get to objective fights a little bit faster than that Zed may be able to do so. But they do wind up having one of those, not infinitely scaling champions in the Cho'Gath top lane, but I guess technically the Vigar is a infinitely scaling champion on the bot side.
Not when you're not CSing, Tom.
I guess when you're, yeah, but they did change it, so whenever you hit a champion with that Q, you're getting some stacks. So it doesn't scale as fast, but it still scales. It's like baby's first NACS stacks.
I'm sure we'll check in every now and then on that, hopefully. A little bit early, not even 10 minutes yet. We can ignore it for now.
I can only imagine.
See a gank coming in the mid lane.
Not that many. But Selfie actually getting flashed on there by Santorin. The shadow is already down. The Hemo Plague is going to pop him, but he's already in the, already in the ultimate there. But Santorin's gonna be able to pick up a kill. And ooh, Pop almost takes down the tree.
He almost was able to trade that back. If he would have been able to get the ultimate off and potentially dodge out on some more damage coming in from them, as well as drop some more back onto Santorin, might have been able to get that kill. Not quite able to do so though, was down his flash. Made him a pretty easy target to go in on. Santorin a little low. Used the smite to heal back up and finish off these chapters.
So no death mark kill coming in for the side of Self. But more importantly, that's going to be Vladimir getting an extra, or actually an assist in that matchup. We already said that if it goes in favor of the Vladimir, it'll be pretty annoying for Selfie. Want to see if Selfie is going to try to transition anything, though, is once he completes that Ghost Blade or Dust Blade. They do have the same exact build path now of the Serrated Dirk and the Caulfield's Warhammer, but on that first item completion, nonetheless, Selfie with his Ignite available and his Flash up soon may be able to transition that, but this is a bit of a different perspective on this gank, as a lot of CC coming out from Maokai kind of makes up for the fact that Vladimir has none for himself, and they just pop Selfie.
Yeah, you saw Selfie there drop his E and auto attack onto Maokai before popping his ultimate. I'm not sure if he was trying to specifically dodge out on some sort of damage there. I didn't quite see, but it did make it so that his ultimate proc did not do as much damage. Might have been able to get the cleanup kill on Santorin, but it's a little hard to say for sure.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Tempo Storm may continue there. Focus on the bottom side of the map, where Freeze has been going even in CS, but ahead because of the assist on this bottom lane, therefore making this tower take a bit of damage as Wiggly joins the fray, and now they may be going for a little bit of a tri-lane versus tri-lane as Maokai off of the back from his own jungle and just getting assist. Mid lane will come in here. Event Horizon trying to zone away from the tower. Explosive cast as well, but teleports being channeled in. Everybody from Tempo Storm is already here, but GCU still looking for the fight. The Gnar backwards against the wall, trying to get a kill on the Sheep, and the Ren stacks will come through. Rikara picks one up for himself. Solo's going to get a Boulder Slaw on multiple people to the but the quick call back in from Freeze will root him in place. Santorin looking for a root of his own, but the rest of Tempo Storm is still relatively healthy, so GCU will just force them away.
Bit of a precarious position there by GCU. The turret was getting low. Solo did channel that teleport a little bit late, so Quas got in on the fight, but I like that GCU was the aggressor. They pick up the Braum, throw him at the Cho'Gath right away, get a little bit of a chain CC on him there while he's under the turret, force him low so the Cho'Gath can't get as involved in that fight as he wants to. Take another look at it here. And you see Cho'Gath start the teleport, and it's not until a couple seconds later that you finally see the Gnar coming in as well. Quas does end up under the turret. There's the double knockup. He barely is able to get out there before the grasping roots lock him into the turret even longer, but Sheep grabs some turret aggro, gets some Ren stacks in him, he goes down, and then it's full retreat mode for Tempo Storm after that. A little bit of an overforce for sure. And
a little unlucky there. Not only did Selfie barely not take down Makara through the heal with his Ignite on him, but he also got locked up by the Maokai roots as he was trying to come around the wall. So it didn't look like the roots really were able to hit him, but it still locks him up on the opposite side. And like that extra half a second or so of DPS might have been able to take down Makara and make that an even trade.
It's one of those situations where if you're Selfie, you might say, you know, the famous phrase, unlucky. One of those games where he's been very close to trading kills back a couple of times, and when you're playing the Snowball Assassin matchup, you know, that's not a negligible 300 gold. That's it's something that really does influence how the next 15 minutes of this game goes.
Well, he does have his Dust Blade of Drakthar complete, so his Ignite and Flash are down though, so I don't know if he's going to be making a lot of moves out of this mid lane, specifically because Fly himself already has pieces for his Hextech Proto Belt picked up in addition to his Seeker's Arm Guard, so already going to be getting the better of Selfie in this matchup. The CS count relatively even, slightly in favor of Fly, but he has that shove pressure in the mid lane now. Now, Selfie might have to be worried about potentially Santorin wrapping around for a dive, but it looks like he's just getting some vision control. His Sheep and Wiggly this time around going to be clearing out the vision around that blue buff area to try to keep the mid laners safe.
And in this matchup, Zed is a champion who does kind of need that Ignite to 100% guarantee win these trades, especially from behind a little bit here. If Fly is able to sustain up during the all-in attempt, be difficult to find the kill even with that Dust Blade completed, so he might be a little bit on the back foot for the next minute or two while waiting for that Ignite to come up.
Well, Ignite will still be down, it looks like, by the time this Ocean Drake spawns on the map, but 35 seconds left for that one, so GCU will start by getting the Scuttle Crab in that area of the map and then continue to pressure down into their opponent's jungle to try to get complete vision control of this bottom side of the map area. Do you see that Freeze and Sheep back in lane now? Freeze gone back, picked up the early Essence Reaver. So you've seen a bit of different styles, different flavors of Xayah on the bottom lane. Cody-san on Immortals has been known to go for that Infinity Edge early on and go for a vengeful late game crit build. But the Essence Reaver here guaranteeing increase in cooldown, so you can spam these abilities out with Sheep in the bottom lane, continue to pressure down on Mad Life. Tempo Storm continue to try to focus one down, but Santorin's in the area. Maokai roots go out, Braum ultimate follows up, and Wiggly is stunned up, locked down for what seems like forever, and Maokai gets a kill.
We mentioned the chain CC combination for Tempo Storm. Didn't really touch on GCU's that much. Obviously with the Callista knockup into the Braum ultimate, into the Braum stun, with the Maokai root and the punch knockup and the ultimate root. Yeah, it's a fair amount of CC as well.
You know, if I carry the one about forever amounts of CC, is now a flash twisted advance will land down onto Selfie, dodges out with the death mark, but Tides of Blood is enough to pick up the kill. Fly picking another one up for himself and the side of GCU.
Really shutting down this Zed pick here. GCU starting to run away with this game. 2,000 gold lead, pressure up on the top side as well. They grabbed their first turret of the game finally, snowballing up to a 3,000 gold lead.
And before Tempo Storm gets this bottom lane tower, so first tower goal going the way of GCU as well as Rakara gets zoned away from this tower. So it was answered by Tempo Storm, but the bonus goal goes over to GCU.
Yeah, just a little too late, and this is one of those situations we're talking about GCU's comp potentially outscaling in the 5v5 with all of that frontline potential. The fact that they have the lead in the early game as well could spell disaster for Tempo Storm here. They do still have that split push threat potentially. Gnar, not known as a champion who wants to build armor early on. But that said, the Zed is behind, so he might not be able to win that split push anyways as he once again gets shut down.
Yeah, and this is Selfie initiating the fray first, but Santorin had just come up from that bottom side where they were able to turn around to fight in that side. Maybe not necessarily knowing that he was that close or still had his flash available, and Selfie finds himself in a 1v2 situation gone wrong.
Yeah, it's pretty nice play by Fly there. You see Selfie trying to dodge out on the Maokai W by proccing his ult onto Fly. And now Fly can dodge out on that as well by using his Sanguine Pool right away, but I think he actually intentionally did not pool to make it so that Selfie actually comes further out away so that way it finishes channeling, and then they can kill him. So a little bit of a smart heads-up play there by Fly. Sometimes you just think, oh, I should always dodge the Zed death mark, but they're pulling him a little bit further away from his turret, I believe. So nice little interaction there by Fly.
Yeah, so Fly also, with a bit of a heads-up play in his build as well, has finished the Hextech Proto Belt, which gets a little bit of the benefits of HP, some damage, and of course the mobility, but also going for Merc Treads to block out this CC. Actually Freeze dodges out on the Fade's Call, but is not going to dodge out in the Exhaust or the stun coming in from the Braum passive. There's another knock-up right here. The CC chain from just the bottom lane is enough to take him down.
This is exactly what we were saying. You know, they have so many tools to get onto the backline of Tempo Storm. Even if Freeze can hop out on one ability, there is so much more CC headed his way, gets taken down the mid lane there as they try and potentially set up a 1-3-1. Zed made his way up to the top side, but that goes in the mid lane.
Maokai ults, and it very slowly but surely locks down on the sheet. This Vygar support not having the best time in the world. The Selfie now going to get jumped down by Fly. Hextech Protobell and the Ghost. The Hemoplague will pop, but he will not go down quite yet. Tides of Blood will proc, but Selfie has to dodge up with the Death Mark by going back in. This time the Sanguine Pool will be used aggressively, and that Tides of Blood takes him down. GCU at the same time is pushing out on the mid lane, and all of a sudden Chaos has erupted, and GCU jump out to a 4,500 gold lead.
Like we said, full-on snowball mode for the front-lining team comp of GCU. Able to charge down that mid lane, get a couple pickoffs. Zed overextended in the top lane as a result. No pressure in the mid lane at all. Gets cut off by Fly. Grabs a kill there underneath his second turn, the top side. The outer one's still up.
And so Goldcorn United now suddenly find themselves at quite a bit of an advantage, and they're going to transition this over into the Rift Herald because it's still not Baron at this point. We're only 18.5 minutes into the game, so Ricard and Santorin are going to get that one. Fly's actually going to find the top lane tower all for himself as well, and this is looking just like game number one, actually more than game number one, because Goldcorn United are finding themselves at such a huge advantage early on in this game.
It's one of those situations where you have to look back at potentially the bans that Tempo Storm threw, as we'll take another quick look at that initiation onto Freeze. Doesn't quite know the, I mean, he knows the Braum is clearing a ward over there, so he should be aware of this potential threat. Does have a nice ultimate to dodge out on the Fate's Call, but like we said, lands the slow, gets an exhaust on top of him, a flash follow by Rikara. Seems like Vygar's event horizon was down there. Did not see him throw that out to try and deter the chase coming in from the Callista. Gets a kill. Everyone does not know that Santorin is wrapped around from the backside, and there you see that wide Maokai ult chaining forward, getting another kill, this time on the Sheep.
And we did wind up seeing at the same time Quasi able to take down the Ocean Drake, and on the top side of the map, Selfie found himself against a Vladimir as Fly just chased him down.
This is what I was trying to get into, is just that you have to look back at the draft a little bit. Vladimir known as one of the common Zed counter picks, and while, you know, there are standard mages who do well, like a Syndra, Zed does tend to have a decent matchup into Syndra, generally speaking. It is still a little rough pre-6, but once you have your ultimate available, you do end up in one of those kind of games of chicken where if Syndra ults you, you get to ult that, and it actually starts working out fine for Zed, as well as the fact that he, if he gets out of lane even, has a much better split push advantage over Syndra, who does not want to be in a long lane compared to a Vladimir. So you got to look at this and say maybe a mistake in the bans of Tempo Storm. Also, we saw the first all-in attempt that Selfie went for. It's one of the most important ones to actually make sure you get a kill when you go for it. He did it before he shot, did not quite have the itemization, got close to killing Fly, but never had an opportunity to use his ultimate. So, you know, maybe the draft phase was fine, and Selfie just had small misexecutions and grabbing a couple of those kills back. It's hard to say at this point because, like we said, if the snowball comp falls behind against this huge beefcake front line of GCU, it's going to look bad.
Yeah, now we see that Selfie can't match up against Fly in the split push situation. They have to send Quas down to that bottom side of the map, and all it took was a little bit of a poke hello from Santorin to make Quas back away from that tower. Now all the outer towers, in addition to that mid lane tier 2, are down for Tempo Storm, so even more gold influx over to the side of GCU. In addition to this, it kind of feels bad if you're Tempo Storm. You put so much focus on the bottom side of the map, not just in the fact that you have 2 dragons, you try to get that tower down extremely early, you went for dives on the bottom lane, you wanted getting the first blood kill on that side, onto your support Vygar, but you weren't able to get the first tower trade because that mid lane matchup went in favor of the Vladimir, and you lost out on that first tower. So even though you wind up trading tower for tower, you lost out on the goalie, and then you kind of flounder around the fact that this Vladimir is ahead.
Like we said, one of those unlucky games, so to speak.
Unlucky indeed.
I mean, of course, if you want to play the hypothetical game, you know, it's a very slippery slope argument, because you could say, well, what if during that initial first blood that the Vygar got, they didn't get double stunned by the event horizon, they all, you know, kind of charge forward at the same time and actually kill the Vygar first. You get into this kind of what if situation that's really not worth playing at this point. You have to look and say, well, what can we for sure take away from this game? And if you're on the side of GCU, you're saying, maybe we do leave the Zed up. It didn't look that bad, especially as they're probably going to head on to red side next game.
This is interesting. We saw pings going down on the Baron pit as the Rift Herald is being channeled in the mid lane just as a bit of a distraction. Don't know if Herald is still actually alive there and pushing down in the mid lane, but Tempo Storm are just going to contest against this one. Rikara looks like he actually knows the Braum passive proccing onto the Baron. Fly trying to do zone control against Quas on the top side. The rest of Tempo Storm's on the bottom side. Soul looking to transform here. Mac ultimate's available. Selfie actually taking it back in, but he gets rooted up. All the members on the bottom side. It's Maokai into Nor against the wall, and Kalista picks up a double kill. Wiggly's gonna get chased down here by Solo. One wallop stuns him up as Fly goes on a killing spree.
That looked great for Tempo Storm at the start. Quas had scared away Fly on the top side. They had all 5 members alive. Tempo Storm had kind of forced GCU into a turnoff situation. A nice event horizon had disengaged. Now Quas the only one left alive.
Ooh, he flashed into the pit. He's trying to get the feast steal, but that Baron was not going down very quickly. Just the Kalista stacking up on it. Yeah,
not able to get that steal. GCU going to grab that Baron, but the big thing is, I don't know why Selfie ended up taking his shadow forward there, putting himself in position to get hit by those Maokai roots and then they get chain CC'd down. Huge mistake out of him after what was a really nice disengage by that Vygar. I believe, I don't know if he lost track of where his shadow was. We're taking a look at it here. There you see, you know, Fly trying to play zoning duty on Quas, but Fly actually coming out worse for wear from it. Gets dropped down relatively low. They send the Maokai route out, and then the event horizon stops that engage. And then, yeah, Selfie just takes his shadow in, I think, and it gets chain CC'd, instantly popped. That's kind of the go signal for Solo to say, hey, we already won this fight. He hops in as aggressively as possible. Also does get a nice Gnar ultimate off there. You're talking about how he's kind of made his name on this champion. Now Solo feeling confident, wants to get aggressive.
It's a little bit too fighty here. Selfie actually, the teleport was canceled there from Quas, and Mad Life's wrapping around the backside. Selfie might find himself between a rock and an enemy team as he's going to get stunned up. He's going to get rooted up, and Solo takes him down.
Yeah, rocking a tree as Maokai wraps around the backside. Good decision actually cancel that teleport. They had one ward in their jungle that saw the wraparound coming, so they of course knew, all right, never mind, just leave Selfie to die. He was a little bit too far forward. And this game is all but over for GCU. Not really great tools to come back in this game for Tempo Storm. The Baron in GCU's favor, and it looks like we might be headed for another one of these Challenger Series. We got the Baron, the game is over games.
Yeah, we still got 2 minutes left on this Baron buff, but in 12 seconds left on Selfie's Death Timer. Event Horizon stuns up onto Santorin. Quas actually trying to go forward with the Righteous Lord, but the Maokai ultimate slowly but surely will walk him up. Quas is in the back line trying to deal some damage, but he's going to be taken down here. The tree knocks him down as now Mad Life is in the fray as well as Fly. He picks up a kill onto the Vygar. Looks like a shutdown spree comes in onto Santorin from Selfie as he respawns, but the focus has been reshifted by GCU to focus down on that bottom lane tower. The inhibitor will fall shortly after that. Actually, Solo gonna hop his way in as he transforms. Not gonna get the Gnar against the wall though as the flash comes out from Selfie. Zones them away from the inhibitor.
And GCU playing the smart objective game instead of going for the end for some reason. Only a 4v3 right now. Gonna back off. Heal up.
25 minutes in. Death timers were still under, 40 seconds or so, or 25.5 minutes in. 14 kills to 2, 10,000 gold each.
So here you see a little bit of that CC combination, but the problem is it's onto Santorin. It's a very, very tanky tree at this point. Quas does take a while to get killed off by Freeze, but that's no problem for the side of GCU because they're so tanky. Mad Life is underneath the turret. Santorin's under the turret. Fly's been under the turret this whole time, and eventually, Selfie does respawn, is able to get the shutdown kill on Santorin, who had taken so much focus by Tempo Storm. But that's a pretty bad consolation prize, given the fact that you lost 2 members and an inhibitor for that play.
Yeah, now there's still 40 seconds left on this Baron buff, so GCU's had some time to kind of recall, spend their gold, and reset a bit, and we'll have a Baron buff to push up these waves for when they start contesting the other sides of the base from Tempo Storm. You see Gnar going for a Black Cleaver and has already completed his Gargoyle Stone Point this time, so if he wants to jump into the fray, he'll have that one, unlike in Game 1 when he was Jarvan, not have that active ability. See once again the Knight's Vow picked up for Santorin on this Maokai. He also has gone for the Spirit Visage. He's got a little bit of extra sustain, going to be helping against kind of, the basically 2.5 AP threat as Fly's going to pop the Ghost to keep himself safe in the mid lane as well as that Sanguine Pool. Has himself a Zanya's Hourglass, completed that, and a Rylai's Crystal Scepter. He's got the chase down potential in any split push situation. Also a little bit of extra HP to keep him alive as GCU will continue to push down on this top side with the remaining 4 members of their team.
Hopefully they go for a dive, and there you see it started off. Going to try and zone them away from the turret. If they get CC'd, maybe you try and kill them. Not as effective as I was thinking it might be.
Explosive cast used to try to push GCU away from that one, and now a little bit of poke coming through, but GCU did pick up an Ocean Dragon off the back of that fight on the bottom side inhibitor, so they'll be able to regen themselves up slowly but surely. But it'll be just enough time as the super minions has to be dealt with by Quas on the bottom side, and they're just waiting for another minion wave.
Yeah, but they do not have the Baron buff on the minion wave anymore. There you see Vygar able to use his Event Horizon to stun up all the minions on it, and then they get to just AoE them down relatively easily. Bit of a tough siege situation here from GCU.
Yeah, they actually have the problems that Tempo Storm kind of had in game number 1, where there's a little bit more of a short-range composition. The Callista and the Vladimir are the only ones who could really poke down that tower, and even Gnar even shorter range than that.
Yeah, that's why when they use that Maokai ultimate right at the beginning, I thought they were going to go a little bit more aggressive. They don't actually go for the dive. Pretty understandable that they don't want to risk it, but as a result, it does lead to a very slow situation here. Fly is breaking back towards the mid lane here. Maybe they realize that they're going to have a little bit more effectiveness in a 4-1 setup because Super Creeps are doing their job. They take a turret.
Super Minions wind up taking on the towers. Quas is busy away clearing the top lane with the rest of his Tempo Storm buddies. Now Selfie and Sheep going to try to catch on to Fly, who's pushing on this mid lane, but the Maokai ultimate's come back up. It's locked down on 4 members of Tempo Storm. The explosive cast knocks the front line back into his own back line, so Wiggly might have not wanted that one. The teleport comes through for Quas, but Gnar already comes into the fray, knocks down the Trogoth against his own base wall. The knock-up coming in, the CC chain from the bot lane does it again on 3 members of Tempo Storm, and GCU are going to be diving through the base this time, Mark. They're going to wind up getting 4 kills as a flash forward by Solo will secure the last one on a double kill. Even though Quas is alive, his base won't be for very long. Looks like GCU's taking a 2-1 lead in this best of 5.
That's the aggressive dive we're looking for with this extremely tanky team comp on the side of GCU. They melt the turret down as Santorin drops his ultimate. They kill all members of Tempo Storm except for Quas, who is left alive by himself. He finds a shutdown onto Solo, getting a little bit of retribution, handing him a death, but he will die as well. That completes the ace and the game for GCU, heading up 2-1 in the semifinal.
Goldcoin United are able to bounce back with a pretty decisive victory in that one. Had some early game disadvantages actually, as Tempo Stormer had some advantages on bot side, but mid lane, specifically the Vladimir into the Zed matchup, the counter pick for Fly in that mid lane is what really kind of kept GCU going. And after a couple of fights, it just, the counter snowball was there. Yeah,
it was one of those situations where I think Santorin had a really nice read on the game. There's a small, like you said, misexecution in the bot side that ended up giving a kill to that Vygar, but he was mid lane when he needed to be multiple times. The first time that Selfie really goes for an aggressive all-in, he's there to cover him to make sure that he doesn't die. That costs both summoners a Selfie, and then he makes a nice repeat gank there to actually get a kill for himself. Fly not getting the assist is obviously great as well, so he's able to survive that. Tempo Storm went for a really aggressive force down around this turret. They were desperate to get the first turret blood. Solo matches the teleport. Santorin's in there as well. They deter that dive attempt, and then he keeps getting these repeat ganks off into the bot lane. And overall, just a really nice controlled game out of him. It would have been good enough if he just stopped Tempo Storm from snowballing, but he was actually able to get 2 of his lanes going at the same time, while up on the top side, Quas on the Cho'Gath was doing fine, but was a little bit behind in CS. And he wants to be this tanky frontliner for his team and hopefully for a snowballing Zed, but that got shut down. The Vygar wasn't able to get going really either, and there you get to see what happens when you have a 3 tank plus a Vladimir comp get off the ground.
Yeah, and we did see that those last 2 kind of fights back-to-back in the replay were just back-to-back from each other. He picks up a kill on the bottom side, and then Selfie gets a little too aggressive in the mid lane. He winds up picking up a kill on the mid lane there as well for Fly. So really good early game control by Santorin to kind of keep his team in this one, despite Tempo Storm having some early game advantages and getting, the majority of the dragons in that game once again. But, Goldcoin United, they don't necessarily need the dragons on the map. They've been the ones that really take the Baron control. They're really good at the vision coverage, and they've been able to translate that in, so far, both of their victories extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about how in the Challenger Series, it does feel kind of like whoever gets the Baron just instantly wins the game. I don't think any game has lasted long enough for a second Baron to need to be taken necessarily. So you know, this is another one of those games, especially with the way the two comps matched up, that if GCU gets ahead, there's almost no chance for the side of Tempo Storm to take a fight. They're not better in the 5v5, and then you have so much health on the side of GCU that the fight's going to last a really long time. You're not going to really be able to assassinate anybody. And even if you do find the Callista, that's great. The Vladimir is probably running wild in your back line.
Yeah, well, one of the fights that looked like it might be going Tempo Storm's way actually wound up being extremely good for GCU and was the one that net them the Baron. Just 22.5 minutes into the game, Goldcoin United are stuck in this Baron pit, and it looks like Tempo Storm have a jump on them, with Quas actually winning the 1v1 against Fly on the top side.
Yeah, and this is one of those situations where it's 5,000 gold advantage for GCU, I believe, at this point, and it should have been a difficult Baron force given how early it was in the game, but Selfie makes a huge mistake taking his W in just to the middle of GCU's team comp. They chance to see him up. He goes down. That opens up Solo to go aggressive for that ultimate. He finds a couple members to stun up. They get 3 kills right away. They go back to force on this Baron. Quas tries to flash over the wall afterwards, hoping for a steal attempt, but it was way too early. He didn't have any vision, had no idea what the health was at. He goes down as well. And a really clean snowball on the side of GCU. That's the kind of goal graph you want to see for your team, just slowly increasing over time. Like you said, right around that 3-minute mark, you see a dip to about 1,000 in favor of Tempo Storm. That's as far out of control as it got, because Santorin did a great job in the early game, being exactly where he needed to be multiple times.
Yep, and as we mentioned before, the Baron was pretty much all Goldcoin United needed to end those games, even though it was 2 Drakes to 1, and the last Ocean Drake only came in after, you know, they took the bot lane inhibitor for the side of Goldcoin United. The Drake control has been still in favor of Tempo Storm. They're still prioritizing the bottom side, even though they're not necessarily going, oh, we have Freeze in the lineup, we need to get Freeze ahead. They're still prioritizing the bottom side, the Drakes, which they were able to stack up more than Goldcoin United in all 3 of these games so far, but they're not able to take those advantages, those objectives, and like transition them into victories aside from game number 2, because they don't have the gold advantages they need to transition them.
And the team has never really played around Quas that much, so it's not that it's on the bot side that's surprising. It's that they're not playing around Selfie too often. Game 1 and game 3, there were a couple standoff moments where both junglers were around the mid lane and they canceled each other out, but they never really have snowballed him. The one time he got going was in game 2, which was mostly off the back of his own play with the Jace counter pick, being able to get a massive CS lead and then pick up some kills on other members. But there hasn't been too many gank attempts in the mid lane. That might be something they want to look at. Maybe they say, you know, the bot side focus isn't exactly working out. Santorin keeps being down there. Once again, this time it was another, you know, match counter gank by Santorin. It was just that the Vygar pick threw them for a loop, was able to get a really nice double stun that stopped that counter gank from working out. So it is a bit of a scary situation here if you're Tempo Storm, because the Zed pick didn't work out, the Cho'Gath pick did not super work out either, and now you're in this position where heading into blue side, I think GC has a pretty good read on them.
Yeah, well, now you have the opportunity to potentially ban that Nara wave, which is something Solo was doing very well against the Cho'Gath, and it didn't completely crush the lane, but did way better than the Kennen did into the melee Alawi matchup, and had way more of an impact in the later game team fights as well. So, you know, the best part you did say about this best of 5 series, you have the ability to kind of feel out not only what your opponents are prioritizing in champion select and different pick and ban phases, but also the ability to evaluate what is working and not working for you. So the Cho'Gath pickup, like you said, didn't necessarily fall flat. It didn't necessarily win in the game like they wanted to, but maybe in combination with the Zed, with the Veigar on the bottom side of the map, maybe just a little bit too much Quas in a team with Quas on it.
Yeah, who knows for sure. It was definitely a draft that you could kind of see the ideas they were going for, but with the great control that Santorin never really got off the ground.
Yeah, so we're stepping away for a little bit, but when we return, it's match point for Goldcoin United. So stick around to see if they claim victory or if Tempo Storm takes us to an exciting game number 5. Black Body Slam's gonna land on Santorin. The Ignite's ticking down, but the tree's going to fall. Teleport's being channeled in. Everybody from Tempo Storm is already here, but GCU still looking for the fight. The Gnar backwards against the wall, trying to get a kill on the Sheep. Now a flash switch to advance will land down onto Selfie. Dodges out with the Death Mark, but Tides of Blood is enough to pick up the kill. Selfie has to dodge up the Death Mark by going back in. This time the Sanguine Pool will be used aggressively, and that Tides of Blood takes him down. He gets rooted up. All the members on the bottom side. It's Maokai into Gnar against the wall, and Callista picks up a double kill. Wiggly's gonna get chased down here by Solo. The knockup coming in. The CC chain from the bot lane does it again on 3 members of Tempo Storm. And GCU are going to be diving through the base this time, Mark.